HOA stormed in right after Daniel moved in, demanding his lake. But they didn't know he controlled their docks. It all started when Daniel moved into what he thought would be his dream home. For years, he had worked endless shifts in the city, saving every dollar, all for one goal: to finally own a house by the water. And when he found it, an old but beautiful property tucked away at the far end of a quiet lake, he thought his troubles were finally over. The house had a wide porch that faced the water, a long dock stretching into the lake, and mornings that began with mist floating across the surface. To Daniel, it felt like heaven. To him, it was more than a home. It was freedom. But to the neighborhood HOA across the water, it was something else entirely: a threat. Barely 3 days after Daniel moved in, there was a knock at his door. Not a friendly knock. No welcome to the neighborhood basket. Just 3 people standing on his porch, clipboards in hand, wearing matching polo shirts with the HOA logo stitched on the chest. At the center stood Cheryl, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. She didn't smile. She didn't even bother with introductions. "You'll need to register your property with the HOA immediately," she said, her voice sharp and rehearsed. Daniel frowned. "Funny, my realtor told me this house isn't part of your HOA." Cheryl tilted her head, the corners of her mouth pulling into a thin, smug smile. "The lake falls under our jurisdiction, which means your dock does too." Daniel folded his arms, unshaken. "Actually, I've read the deed. This section of the lake, and the dock attached to it, they belong to me, not you." For the first time, Cheryl's mask slipped. Her smile faltered, her eyes narrowed, but she quickly recovered. "We'll see about that," she said coldly before turning on her heel and marching away. At first, Daniel thought that was the end of it. He figured they'd realize he wasn't part of their little kingdom and move on. But that's not how HOA bullies operate. The letters started arriving first. "Unauthorized dock structure must be removed immediately." "Improper watercraft storage subject to fines. Failure to comply will result in further action," each one more aggressive than the last. Daniel ignored them, until one morning he walked outside and found a bright orange sticker plastered across his fishing boat. It read, "Violation, subject to fine." That was the moment Daniel realized this wasn't going to stop on its own. The HOA didn't just target Daniel with letters. They began whispering about him to the neighbors. When he passed by, conversations stopped. Kids who used to play by the water no longer came near his dock. He could feel the tension every time he walked down the street. One evening, his elderly neighbor, Mr. Harris, shuffled over, lowering his voice. "Son, Cheryl runs this HOA like a dictator. People don't question her, but don't let her scare you. You own that dock. Just be ready. She'll play dirty." Daniel nodded slowly. "Thanks. I'm not backing down." It all came to a boiling point at the next HOA meeting. Daniel wasn't required to attend. After all, he wasn't a member, but he showed up anyway. The room fell silent as he walked in. Rows of folding chairs filled with neighbors, a long table at the front where Cheryl and her board sat like royalty. Cheryl's smile was thin, fake. "Mr. Daniels," she began, deliberately mispronouncing his name, "your lake activities are disrupting the harmony of this community. We have voted, and we expect you to comply with HOA standards." Daniel walked slowly to the front, carrying a thick folder. He set it down on the table with a heavy thud. Inside were copies of his deed, legal maps, property surveys, everything proving what he already knew. He spoke calmly, but his words carried weight. "Actually, this section of the lake and every inch of the docks attached to it, they're mine, which means you need my permission to use them." The room went silent. For the first time, Cheryl's fake composure cracked. "That's ridiculous," she snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "These docks have been part of this community for decades." Daniel leaned forward. "And yet, legally, they're mine, which means every one of your boats tied up there. Technically trespassing. Gasps spread across the room. Neighbors whispered to one another. Some looked furious, not at Daniel, but at Cheryl. The HOA doubled down. They sent inspectors to his property, snapping photos and jotting down notes like spies. They left notices taped to his door. They even tried blocking his driveway once with cones, claiming it was community enforcement. But Daniel wasn't playing defense anymore. He had hired a lawyer. Every time they sent a letter, his lawyer sent one back, stronger, sharper, and filled with legal threats the HOA couldn't ignore, cease and desist notices, trespassing warnings, dock, usage fee demands. The HOA thought they could intimidate him. Instead, they were bleeding money just trying to fight him. Neighbors began to notice. At first, they'd been too afraid to cross Cheryl, but now they saw Daniel standing up to her and winning. One by one, they began approaching him quietly. "Hey, if we wanted to keep using the docks, could we work something out with you directly? I never liked how Cheryl ran things. You've got my support. She's been bullying us for years. About time someone stood up to her." Slowly, the tide was turning. Cheryl's grip on the community was slipping. The HOA called an emergency meeting. Cheryl was red-faced, practically shaking with anger as she waved papers in the air. "We will not let one man dictate this community," she barked. Daniel stood up calmly, holding his own stack of papers, stamped, signed, and legally binding. "You already let one person dictate this community," he said, staring directly at her. "Her name is Cheryl, but not anymore." He laid down his final blow, a legal notice demanding that every boat be removed from his docks immediately, or he would begin charging daily storage fees. The room erupted, not at Daniel, at Cheryl. "This is your fault," one neighbor shouted. "You lied to us," another added. "We're done with you, Cheryl." For the first time, Cheryl wasn't in control. She was cornered, outnumbered, powerless. Within weeks, the HOA was fractured. Cheryl lost her position. The board crumbled. Neighbors stopped listening to their empty threats. And Daniel? He got exactly what he wanted. Peace. He would sit on his porch each morning, sipping coffee as the sun rose over his lake, the water calm and quiet. The docks were still there, but now they were under his control. If anyone wanted to use them, it was on his terms. The man the HOA thought they could push around ended up controlling the very thing they wanted most. And the neighborhood learned. A lesson they'd never forget. Sometimes the quiet new neighbor isn't the one under the HOA's authority. Sometimes he's the one who controls the lake.